On this episode of Nerds Talking the Podcast, Lafayette talks to pro wrestler David Flex Macallion and what it's like to be a wrestler, the ups, the downs, being on the road, and going to the big leagues. All that and more on this episode of Nerds Talking the Podcast. Now start the show.
Nerds Talking, the podcast.
Yo, we talk about lightsabers, stunning your TV screens, what you want to stream, everything beyond your dreams. Want to talk about movies, sports, or even politics? Go ahead and tune into us, we'll give you all of it. Whatever you're debating, Xbox or PlayStation, Marvel or DC, Mac or PC. Teraflops when the movie drops, gigabytes, chips, RAM, no matter what it is, we got all of it. Welcome to the show.
Nerds Talking, the podcast.
Welcome to Nerds Talking the Podcast. I am Lafayette. Usually you hear four of us. Well, today's just a one-on-one with pro wrestler David Flex Macallion. That's right.
Beef.
That's right. One half of Beef Candy.
One half. The beef of Beef Candy.
He's the beef of Beef Candy. And I've known Dave. We work together and we run into each other a lot in our business. And man, we talk wrestling. Let me tell you.
We do.
We chop it up. And Dave's going to tell us all about being an independent wrestler, a pro wrestler, being in WWE, getting that experience and more.
Foot in the door. Yeah, foot in the door.
And more. Because I think it's rather interesting. People don't understand wrestling is no different than trying to get to the NBA, the NFL.
NBA and NFL is what I tell everybody, because when you tell somebody that you do wrestling, but you don't work full-time for WWE or something that they know, they tell you, dude, you're good enough. Why don't you go apply? And I'm like,
go apply.
If only it was like that. If only it was that easy. People don't seem to understand that wrestling is no different than any other major sport that you watch on television. You literally have to be one of, dare I say, the best in the world to perform at such a high level. I think that it doesn't declare on a skill meter of what you are, but you need to be seen and you need to be needed. And that's where it comes into play. You could be the greatest thing. I'm just saying this right now. 10 people just flashed through my head that have never been signed to a contract in WWE or AEW or any other major promotion that I've worked with throughout the years. And it's sad because that's the way you earn money at this craft. And that's the way you get proper exposure of doing great things with what you do and getting seen on the biggest stage. So yeah, it's quite the conundrum of what people believe it to be, but a lot harder than applying, sending in a resume.
Yeah, I think it's people don't understand that, because I think the person that watches wrestling as a casual, they just view it as, the whole, it's fake and these guys are just playing a part. They don't understand how much it takes to actually be, so-called fake wrestler. It's not, no, there's, you see these guys on screen for 10 minutes on a Monday program. And the other rest of the week, they're working their ass off to try to keep those 10 minutes the next Monday,
Back in the day when there was house shows, and for anyone that doesn't know what a house show is, it's an untelevised event. So wrestling isn't just a pop-up circus on a Monday or Friday or, dare I say, Wednesday night. It's something that happens multiple times in the week. That way you hone that craft, and that way you can practice things before putting it on live television in front of millions of people around the world. So you do it in front of a live audience. That way it's no different than a televised event, except there's no television cameras running, and you're taking the same amount of, dare I say, body abuse, but half or like 90% less viewers of what you got going on, because it's just in front of a live audience. I think nowadays house shows, to my knowledge, are not common if they still exist. Once in a while, there'll be pop-up live shows that are not televised or not a secondary third show that airs somewhere on YouTube or a secondary channel, which saves the guys' bodies, honestly. But then you also have people not learning as in-depth as they would. Sometimes a match would literally be copy-paste from the live show to TV. So that way, everything they go to do, they know it worked. It was successful. It got the audience's attention. And they were like, dude, let's do that again on Monday. Because if you don't know, wrestling is predetermined. The word fake, oof, what a nasty, volatile word. But it is predetermined, just like the movies that every single human on the planet goes to the movie theaters to watch. That is all planned. That is all green screen. So when you do the weighing out between the two, wrestling is actually more of a live action sequence than the movie you watch. And I love Marvel to death, but these guys are paid actors that have stunt doubles, and as well as they're on strings and they're being moved on, rolling apparatuses. And so in the wrestling, it's just you're back on the mat taking bumps. I don't know how to fake that. If someone knows, please tell me, because mine's starting to go on me. My bump card, it's getting pretty
almost
crap.
pressed out.
That's it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's entertainment, and people have to understand that. You watch it for storylines and entertainment. Some people say, oh, it's fake. Well, yeah, fake in the sense of, these guys aren't actually fighting each other. They're, there's heat for sure behind the scenes. Some guy might not like a guy legitimately, but it's all scripted. It's for your entertainment. Like, that's what it's for.
UFC's there. If you want to go watch people beat people up, we have boxing and UFC.
Exactly.
We have bare knuckle fighting still in England. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's stuff to tune into if you just want to watch violence.
Yeah. I mean, they just had that slap league or whatever that was.
Oh,
was
yeah, that
ridiculous.
was blown out eardrums.
Yeah.
Cracked skull, face fractures. Yeah, it sounds great. Fantastic.
Oh, just horrendous. So tell everyone how you got into wrestling, what your experience was starting up in wrestling, and where it's led to now. Like all your, the highs, the lows, the being on the road. We all hear the stories like you show up to a show and a wrestler's like, yeah, you're the third card and you're gonna get paid, $80, and then he doesn't pay you. And you're like, bro, I just drove 8 hours and what the hell, and da. Like give us like the dirt, as they say, from your beginning, how you formed Beef Candy, which is the tag team, and give people the experience of, again, an independent wrestler that gets the call and like, it's prime time, let's go, but still continues to grind, till he gets that one call that he's like, this is it, I'm gonna shine again.
Sure. Let's do bullet points for my career. I feel like that's the best way I'll be able to. And also, I think anyone that's not familiar with wrestling or anything that you just said, possibly the thing that comes the closest to a pro wrestler, indie pro wrestler, is a comedian. So if you've ever been into comedy or have had a comedian friend, comedians go through the same exact lifestyle. I want to say rock star, but it's a little different. But a comedian, you literally cut your teeth by the bare bones of nothing, receiving nothing, barely making it, just to try to get your name out there and have it slowly grow. So the way it started for me was at the age of, I think 9 years old, I fell in love with pro wrestling because I was forced to go over some kid's house, and it was my mom's friend, and he had everything. He had the Doink the Clown figure. He had the Big Boss. I didn't know any of these. It sounded ridiculous to me. There was he had the Godwins, and I'm like, what is all this? This is garbage. I literally had I was a Power Ranger guy, so I was just like, I don't want to get into it, but he would hand me these figures. And they were the LJM ones, so all they did was turn left and right, kind of like my wrestling style. But so I have these in hand. He's watching Raw, and I have no interest. But I'm going in there week in, week out, dare I say, for like maybe a year or so, and you just subconsciously start to pick up on this stuff. And this was in the heat of the culmination of the corporation.
Oh, yes.
So that was around when, Vinnie Mac was there. And then I'll speed up the process. I saw The Brood, and that was what caught my attention. And
now people don't know what The Brood is. It was a vampire faction in the WWF, or WWE. They rose through fire. That's right. Entrance, they rose through fire. They came out, particularly Gangrel, came out holding a goblet. He would drink blood, quote unquote. Wow.
Spit it. And Edge and Christian were his lackeys. And And it just was the coolest thing to me. I just was mind blown. They would bloodbath people. It was just they would lights flicker. They're wearing red, blood, fruit punch, whatever it is. And it was the coolest thing. And I said at the age of 9, oh, I need to do this. And then you just kind of go throughout my childhood, and I told everybody one day I'll be a pro wrestler, and school said, no, that's not a career, David, be quiet. And then they also said, David, have some hind sense. You're the shortest kid here. You're the smallest kid here. There's no possible way you could be guys like The Rock, Stone Cold, Paul White, The Big Show, Undertaker, Kane, etc. So that's what started me at the age of 15 to start doing my quote unquote like bodybuilding journey and start working out at the gym. And then at that point, I met a gym owner there, and he was someone who trained in wrestling, but he hurt his neck. So he trained down in Florida. Man, I forget it was by Shippensburg. So whoever was training out in Shippensburg, I want to say Luthez maybe. And he was trained, and he had a couple sessions under his belt, and he hurt his neck. He was the owner of Extreme Gym. I'll just put his name in there, David Wainwright. It was something that he said was not for him, but he loved it to death. So me and him created this bond. And needless to say, this was during the era of MySpace. I make a MySpace. I play a facade on MySpace before nowadays social media run. And I get a contact from David Marquez. And if you don't know who David Marquez is, he's a name that's been in pro wrestling for over 30 years. He used to be the president of NWA. He's the current owner and president of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, which I currently work for, but that's kind of spoiling the outcome here. He reached out to me and said, hey, you got a good look, kid. I see you write about wrestling. I wrote blogs. And he said, you should do pro wrestling. And to me, I was like, I guess I should. And then he goes, just move out to California and we'll get you started. I have a TV show. And I go, I'm 16. I never was planning to leave. I lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, so I was never planning to leave. So me and Dave touched base off and on for the next 3-4 years. And finally, he got me. He said, you know what? You really want to do this? You really want to do it out there? Because I lived like 20 minutes from the ECW arena.
Yeah.
And he said, we got Chikara going over there, which was a famous wrestling school. And at the time, the head trainers were Claudio Castagnoli, Sarah Del Rey, and Mike Quackenbush, along with Chris Hero was there as well. So Dave said, I can get you started with Claudio. He's like, and then you go to a couple sessions, see how you like it. He forwarded the money, and he said, let's just get you started, and then we'll get you to California. So I said, deal. So 2 sessions in, I take a headlock takeover on my head and sprain my spinal cord, and instantly tapped out of the business. And I said, man, this isn't for me. This was in 2008. And I said, nah, this isn't for me. And it was a scare. I couldn't work out. It was a couple weeks of weird tingly feelings, not feeling well. And I just told Dave, I'm done with this. No thanks. So we let it sit for another year. I recovered relatively quick. And I'm now 21 years old. And got into a little bickerment with the Dave that ran the gym. I was working at that gym, and I went and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to take this chance. And I hit up Dave Marquez, and I told him, I'm down to move to California and try this out. If you can get me situated with a living and a job, that would be great. So he said, sure, whatever, let's just make it happen. So it didn't sound too reassuring. But, being 21, I was like, whatever, let's try this. So I packed 2 bags, and it was almost like a beginning of a sitcom from the 70s. And I hopped on a plane, and they dropped me off at Bob Hope Airport.
Yeah.
And Dave was late to pick me up, almost an hour and a half. And there was no contact from him. And I was like, dude, did I just get burned coming to California? But it was because he was in business meetings. He worked a lot with, he had just finished recently doing Wrestling Society X, and he worked with Lucha, Kevin Kleinrock, which was the one that headed Lucha Underground or had a part in Lucha Underground. So they had a long meeting that day. So picked me up, and that kind of started the journey. From there on, I bounced around. I trained with Jesse Hernandez down at EWF, which was the starting block for many of top talent today, like Frankie Kazarian, Melina, Scorpio Sky. They all started at EWF. The Young Bucks, they started at EWF. So that was my school to start at. And then from there, I moved around. I did Mach 1 wrestling, which is non-existent. And the trainer has kind of been leveled from pro wrestling, Joey Ryan. So there was a couple different people that I trained with. And then long story short, I evolved my character several times throughout the years of doing it. I feel like everybody in pro wrestling kind of comes and goes. It's a very demanding sport, and mentally, as you're growing physically on your body. And I had my ins and outs of life. So I would come in, wrestle for 2-3 years, nothing really catch, and then kind of leave for two years.
Check out.
Come back. And then I had a nice run. I had a good run back from 2015 through 2018 as Coach Flex in Pack 3 on the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood product. I was teamed with Dylan Bostic, which is probably my best friend in life still to this day, Dan Joseph, and Dickie Mayer and Clarence, which he wasn't a wrestling character, but we brought him in. His dad actually made King of the Hill. His dad's really cool. So anyway, that was a super group that we had. It was a fantastic time. But for whatever reason, we did not get eyes from WWE. We had a chance where William Regal was supposed to come to a taping and check us out, which he heads development at that time. And there was a scenario, someone that they were in a lawsuit with was at our tapings and he could not come. So that fell through. Yes, and then at that point, they ended up, there was a disagreement, I guess, in terms of creative, and they ended up killing off Pack 3, and they just kind of let us all just go. And then they brought back Dan Joseph for a long run there. He did commentary, and then he became the Heritage, I want to say Heritage champion. No, the TV champion, which was good for him. He really developed as a wrestler and a character through that run. But as for me, I just kind of stewed at home for the next, dare I say, what was it, 2-3 years? Then there was a change in creative. And with that change came a phone call to me, and literally the very next day, and get a call, and they said, hey, what are you doing nowadays? Want you to come back. But on the rise at the same time, this was 2020, was COVID. So I come back the first week of March, and COVID came out in full force the second week of March. And that just put everything on the back burner again, which led me to coming back in full-fledged way in August of 2020. And there was a new creative head, and that was Aaron Stevens, which is better known as Damian Sandow by some people. So Aaron led our creative, which to me, he was just someone I found brilliant. His promos, everything. So it was the coolest thing. And this guy tells me, hey man, like I watched some of your promos from your previous stuff. And he's like, you really know what you're doing. I feel like you got this. I'm going to pair you with this guy, Richie Slade. And he's like, I'm thinking something like Zoolander between the two of you. And I said, he's like, can you do it? And I said, absolutely. My whole work in wrestling has been character work. I watch guys like The Rock, John Cena, Chris Jericho, Kurt Angle. And I watched them evolve from being babies, dare I say, to full-fledged Hollywood characters. Not saying that I am at that same level, but that's where I like to operate and I feel comfortable. So I said, yeah, I got this. And then Richie was informed that he was involving me, but he thought we were having a match. So when I went to Richie, I said, hey man, so we're working together. And he's like, yeah, we'll plan something. We'll get it going. And I said, well, we should get a name. And he goes, what do you mean a name? And I'm like, we're a team. And he's like, oh, I thought I was wrestling you. And I said, no. I said, they're putting us together. They kind of want me to manage you. And then he goes, all right. He's like, yeah. And then they come in and they literally say, hey guys, can we get a promo from you in like 20 minutes? And he goes, oh yeah. What do you got? And I said, I got this name that came to me in the shower like 2 weeks ago. And I said,
wait a second. You came up with this name in the shower.
Yeah. And I was actually, I was with an ex at the time. And she was like outside the shower. And I said, hey, what do you think of the name Beef Candy? And she said a word that I won't say on here, but it wasn't a nice thing. And I said, well, that might be good. I said, that might be alluring to why it would be a cool name in wrestling. So given this opportunity with a 2-man band, I came up with this name, Beef Candy. I said, what do you think? And he's like, what does it mean? I said, I'm not sure yet. I said, but I think the name is catchy. And I said, and I think that's what we'll need to succeed. And he's like, let's do it. Because one thing I'll give Richie during this whole process of us being together now for over 3 years is that he's been down for any of my crazy ideas. As long as we're not like landing on our head, he's been down for anything that I say, and he goes with it on the fly. And I give him like full kudos to that, because sometimes my stuff can be pretty crazy. But so we go in there, and the guy with the stick, the interviewer, happens to be Dave Marquez, and he has no idea what's coming in this promo. We have no idea what's coming in this promo. So we just kind of throw it together, and they reintroduce Richie Slade, which his last run was like, they weren't really using him as a main guy. So he walks in on Dave cutting a promo, and then he says like, I demand some respect. I need some respect. And then, Dave's like, rah, 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 whatever, Dave stuff. And then Richie goes, but I'm not doing this alone. And then I walk in off the left side, and he goes, oh no, not this guy. And I throw in my 2 cents, as I usually do, and we end it with, not in the hyper fashion that we do it now, but we do it and we are known as Beef Candy. And Dave Marquez goes, who approved that? And then they say cut, and then he goes, no, really, who approved that?
Oh, really?
Like, I will never use that name on my programming.
Really?
So that was the start of the name that stuck. And thanks to Aaron, he was the one that literally made it golden in the wrestling business. We were going to do, there was a small show. It was a small show. It had almost everybody on it. Is now a signed talent besides me and Richie. But it was called Primetime Live, that aired during the time of COVID, end of 2020 through, I want to say, mid 2021 or end of 2021. And Primetime Live was also directed and filmed by Dave Marquez. It was another Dave Marquez Productions product. And we were actually, me and Richie had more matches than anyone else on that program, because we were the job guys. And totally, we were cool with that, because we filmed it at Thunder Studios in Long Beach. It was a fantastic venue. It looked like $1 million. We couldn't have people in the, we couldn't have people in yet because it was still COVID era. So we did it in front of an empty, but it was live on the Fight app. So there was no do-overs like some places were doing. There was no downtime. It was straight to the point. We're doing this. It's airing live right now. So we did that, and that was super fun. And on the first go around that they were going to use us, Dave nixed the name and said, no, I don't want to use Beef Candy. So I think the graphic, I think the approved name was Team Sex.
Oh, wait. So he assumes that's better than Beef Candy?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was Team Sex. There was a third guy too, Ricky Mandel.
Wait, there's 3 guys in Team Sex?
Yeah, originally Beef Candy was supposed to be a 3-man group.
Yeah.
That I was going to be the third, like I was going to be the manager.
Yeah,
I didn't like the concept at all, but I was going to be the manager and they were going to be the team, and I hated everything to do with that. But I kept my lips pretty sealed throughout the process of it. And this was the introduction of the third guy, which was just kind of randomly, he was just going to be thrown in. And he did not like the concept of the group. He kind of hated it. He has a very Bray Wyatt type like gimmick. So he's a great looking cat with a fantastic body, and that's why they were using him for this. But this was not up his alley. So he was telling me like, I don't like this. I don't like what they did. And then we're sitting there alone in like the dressing room. And I told him, everything to do with this gimmick has been from my head. This is my creation. And then his face was just like, he's thinking, maybe I shouldn't have said all that. He was like, well, I think this will be the last time that I work here. And that was the final time that we used Ricky, and not Richie, Ricky. And it was a one and done tag team expedition. And from that point on, it became me and Richie. I had to work hard to get back in the ring, to get back into ring shape, had to get back into ring awareness. Richie helped me with everything along the journey. Richie pretty much retaught me from scratch. All those years I would sit out or was used as a sock puppet as Coach Flex. this was the turning of, it was all Aaron too. Aaron, I went to him and said, Aaron, I can't be a manager. I said, this is ridiculous. I said, I see the people online. I said, they're like, why is one of the buffest dudes on the program outside like a dancing monkey outside the ring? Why is he just a voice piece? And Aaron goes, oh, if you want to work in the ring, he's like, let's do it. And I said, I was pulled a while ago because management just didn't think I was up to par. They always just put me down and they made me feel like I was absolute zilch crap. So then you're going to start to be really bad when everyone points a finger at you as being really bad. So Aaron goes, you'll make them eat their words. He's like, look at you. He's like, that's all it takes is just the green light. And he green lighted me to get back in there. And Richie helped me get as good as I can for my movements. And I feel like on a par level, movements can be robotic, and some of them can be a little awkward, but I am 100% safe, and everything I do has fire to it. And that's, I think, I'm not trying to be some of the best guys in this industry. I'm not trying to be a Ricochet. I'm not trying to be an Orange Cassidy. I'm trying to be myself. And you know, it's not to follow someone else. It's to blaze my own path, whether, you know, I move like an android or not.
Who would you compare yourself to if you had to? If you said, someone said, I don't really watch much wrestling, but is there someone that like you wrestle like?
You know, I will say John Cena again is someone that I feel like some of my movements are limited because of my mass for my body height and structure. I feel like that's why Cena was the way he was. Yeah, sure, we have some super jack guys throughout the years that have really good movements and flexibility, but then some of us just don't. We pick things up and we put them down, and that's what we do, you know, in life. So this is one of those things where it doesn't correlate as much as I would like it to in the ring. So I do what I can, but I would say power move wise, who I would be like, probably Lex Luger. Someone like Lex Luger.
Yeah, I could see that though.
I don't have the height for these guys had, but I use a lot of their move set because I'm good at picking people up and I'm good at slamming them. I'm not the technical guy. I can throw some things in. Randy Orton, I bumped into him at one of the WWE things, and he said to me, like, he said just real quick, like, you remind me of Chris Benoit. And he was, of course, talking about the stature, the body type.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, wrestling wise, absolutely not. You know, I would love to be as great. I mean, Chris was everything. But for me growing up, to reach the level of like a Chris Benoit or Eddie Guerrero body type wise, that's everything for me, because they're on the shorter end and they got so stocky and massive that they were considered full-blown heavyweights before their days.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
So that's the most I could ask for, is being on the being a short king, which is a cool term nowadays. You know, and just trying to make it up there with the big guys. And then I'll move on to not drag this out, the experiences I've had, the highs and the lows. So the highs, I myself and Richie both have worked for WWE and AEW. AEW is the competitive company right now of WWE, if no one is familiar with that name. Equally as big, equally as budgeted. So we were lucky enough to get not only like an extra role on the show, but we got a featured segment on the show that allowed us to show face for more than just a couple seconds or a beatdown. Back in 2021.
We're talking about AEW or WWE?
This is WWE. So
let's say, okay, I know what we're talking about here.
Yeah, so November of 2021, November, December, in that time frame, we got invited to WWE SmackDown when they came out here to the Staples Center. Richie, this was the first time I had ever reached out to WWE. In all the years I did this, I never knew who to reach out to. I never reached out. I never tried, and I wanted to. It's the ultimate dream of mine, but I just didn't feel like I had it in me. So finally, being pretty successful on the indie run, you know, doing a lot of TV with Dave Marquez, I said, man, I want to do this. So we sent in, dare I say, we sent in the application, but we reached out through email and just said, hey, you know that you're going to be in town, maybe blah, blah, blah. So we get the email back and we get the invite. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. And Richie, who has done it before, he's gone to Raw, he's gone to SmackDown, been invited. He said, don't get your expectations high. Don't set it to a level that you think you're going to be used. He's like, you honestly could just be invited, you're going to eat catering, in the back, and you're just going to get that moment that you'll be around all these legends and these guys you've looked up to for years. And he's like, don't expect to get used, but me, with the gym life I have and everything else, I want to maximize anything I get myself involved in. So knowing this, I bring my beef candy shirt. I dress, of course, accordingly to dress code. But when it comes time to roll around in the ring or get in front of the physical instructor, I made sure I put on my beef candy spaghetti stringer, and I'm walking around, trying to be as jacked as I can for my height. And I got my beef candy. I'm wearing the logo. Richie did not do the same, which I was a little disappointed about, but it's okay. And, I'm walking around, and I walk by, the girls are getting their makeup done in the back, and Liv Morgan's sitting there and she's getting done. I think she was maybe women's champion, maybe not yet at this time. And she's just, she's forced to a chair and getting her face pampered and everything. Yeah. So I'm walking by, and I hear her out loud read beef candy. And then like she's looking at me, and then like I just smiled, and then she said it again. And like it was just the name, like she reading the shirt. And that's the biggest thing with beef candy is as time's gone on, it's really grown with the people because they just love to say it. I say beef, Richie says candy, and the people want to say beef candy. You look at someone nowadays, my personal friend, but LA Knight, and for years he's been that same guy. He's always been that guy at parties, in situation out at the bar. He just says things like, yeah, it's just what he does. But when you do that on a stage that's in front of people, that's something that will catch with the audience and that will draw them in. They can do it too. You are including them. So that was what beef candy ended up becoming to me and Richie, was our inclusion of the audience. And originally we were bad guys, heels. And then the saying beef candy forced us into being good guys because the people just love to say it.
It works both ways though, because you guys can be the arrogant bad guys, right? We're beef candy, which means like the buff, good looking guys. Like we're beef candy. And like you said, it works both ways. Oh, now they're good guys because because we're cheering them on, the underdogs that think like, we're so good. Wait, we're gonna whoop your ass.
That's it. It's the underdog role. And I think that night we kind of got saw as that because they said, hey guys, I don't know if we're going to use anybody, but we might need 2 extras for a Brock Lesnar segment. And joking going into that taping, I was telling all my close friends, like, dude, I'm going to get in Brock Lesnar's face when I'm there. And not for a minute did I mean that. And when they tell me, hey guys, Brock's going to come in, he's going to hand select who he wants to work in this segment. And we all lined up, and there's like 12 of us, 15 of us. And we're standing against the barricade, behind the barricade. And I'm sitting there and I'm pushed my chest out all like this.
Oh,
and
there you go.
I said, Richie, push your chest out. And he goes, it is pushed out. And I said, well, push it out more. And then Brock walks in, everyone stands up, everyone gives like a clap. He says hello to very limited people. And Michael Hayes says, hey man, we need you to pick 2 of these guys to do a segment with. He looks at us all like it's a jail lineup, who's the criminal. And he goes, I'll take those 2 buff ones on the end. And I'm looking and I'm thinking to myself, I'm pretty sure he means us because we're on the end. That's what I'll take. So Michael Hayes goes, you sure you don't want the tall guys? And he goes, legit words from Brock, I don't give an F if they're 10 feet tall. He said the real curse. I will kick their ass. And then at that point, Michael Hayes and Jason Jordan both said, get in here. And that was it. And we were put into a segment where we wore scrubs. I almost didn't fit in mine because they were very tight. And we were put into the opening of SmackDown. And I think that was the opening segment. And we pushed Sami Zayn in a wheelchair. We got obliterated by Brock Lesnar. It was probably the coolest thing I've ever done in my life for what I'm into in my life. I think I got hit up by more people from the past, kindergarten people that were just like townspeople from back in, because they just were flipping through channels and they saw SmackDown coming on, and there I am. I did it. I made it, and it was me and Richie, and WWE had no idea that we were a team. Like they didn't look deep into it. It just happened to be Brock picked us, and that was it. So we had a lot of people thinking that we got like signed, like,
oh, yeah.
We didn't tell anybody because we got into a segment together, which is like unheard of for like a non-wrestling match on their program. So that was the coolest thing. And Brock was an upstanding individual. He is very intimidating, a man of few words, But when Richie said, he was with Paul Heyman at the time, and we said to Paul, we're literally 15 minutes before going live on SmackDown, and we're standing right outside of Gorilla, and we're there with Paul, we're there with Sami Zayn, and we're there with Brock Lesnar, and we're just literally standing there being extras, and we're in our scrubs, and we have no idea what we're going to do or what we're taking. We've planned the segment with Sami, and Sami said, just expect the unexpected with Brock. And we said, okay, so right beforehand, we said, hey, Paul, any chance you know what Brock's going to give us? We didn't want to ask Brock directly. And he goes, Brock, what are you going to give these guys? And he looks at Richie and he goes, I'm going to give you like a kick to the gut and I'll throw you out. And then he goes to me, he goes, you look like you can fight. He's like, why don't you raise a fist at me? And then I'm going to wreck you and then going to give you some Brock shit. And I said, got you. And that was it. And I figured as much. I was like, I don't think I'm taking an F5. I said, because I think he's saving that for Sami for the segment. So I said, he's just going to probably, I played Here Comes the Pain. And Brock was the selling point of that back in the day. And I said, I think he's just going to maul me. And the segment went exactly like that. And he just kind of laid us out and mauled us and threw us to the wayside.
It did. Yeah, no, it went great. I remember when the night it happened.
we got some respect from huge names in the back. As soon as we got to the back, Molly Holly was back there and she was like, God, you guys were amazing. She's like, you sold it like you weren't even workers. And I'm like, well, that was because Brock picks you up like a sack of potatoes and you float in midair.
Yep.
So then he just tosses you like you're on the field. And you don't have a chance to be a wrestler at that point. You're a dead body, So that was that. And then as we're getting changed out of our scrubs, to me, the coolest thing was the moment where I see Randy Orton coming down the hallway and no one else is around. And I said to Richie, hey, watch out, man. Randy's coming down the hallway. And, we move out of the way and Randy stops by us and goes, you guys okay? And we're like, yeah, and he's like, you guys took a beating out there. And we're like, no, we're okay. I can't feel my hand and Richie can't feel his arm, but it's okay. And he goes, that's when he said, man, he's like, you kind of look like Chris. And I just automatically was like, then what? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, thanks. And then that was it. That was our encounter.
That's it.
Like, great job. And then at the same time, Jinder Mahal comes out of his locker room and goes, hey, you guys got a locker room? And we didn't, but we're like, yeah. And he goes, okay. He said, man, he goes, you guys got to live out something that not everybody gets to live out. He's like, Brock is very selective with who he works with. He said, so what you did, he's like, it's something that some legends can't ever do. And he's like, so just take this moment in. And I said, oh, absolutely. And I said, thank you. And he goes, if you need a locker room, you can use mine. And I said, thank you, but no, we're okay. And that to me was just the coolest moment, guys I've looked up to, guys I watched forever and got to work with them and got a respective peer reaction. Wow. And I'm just who I am. So
that's awesome. I mean, that really is. I remember,
so
like
cool,
I said,
man.
when it happened, I was like, what? He's a nurse.
Yeah. And
dare I say, by Brock Lesnar.
Dare I say, someone at your still company, but my former company, once called me a semi-pro wrestler. And I had never heard that term ever in my life. I still have never. It was just that one guy. And I said, when I heard that was curdling to me because that just means that you haven't made it. Like, it just means that you're not good. Semi-pro just sounds
because
really bad.
People only, as you know, you can play 15 years in Europe, make millions of dollars playing basketball. You're not a pro basketball player. You're a semi-pro.
No, that's
because
it.
you didn't play in the
semi-pro.
NBA. Exactly.
Yep,
and that's how it is.
So that moment was when I stamped my WWE card. In a sense, they paid me. I have a check stub from WWE. I don't care if I was contracted or not. In the end, I was paid by them.
You were an employee.
I made a moment on their live TV. So.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So I'll tell you what, we'll take a break here on Nerds Talking the Podcast. We'll be back with more Flex Macallion and his wrestling journey after this.
Hey, how's it going? You like wizards, magic spells, and dragons? Well, we got all that and more.
Like dildos and gay-ass horses.
I'm trying to do a commercial right now, Barry.
The commercial should be about me and how your mother have a podcast.
No one wants to hear about your bullshit.
But you want to hear about your mother and
Okay,
me,
listen.
don't you?
We
Me and your mother have a fantastic podcast, but it's just us making love.
I fucking hate you, Barry. I never even liked you. Now you're ruining my
But
podcast.
you know who likes me is your mother. She likes me so much she calls me Dick
You're
Wizard.
not a fucking wizard, Barry. Fuck, man. trying to promote my show here, man, and you fucking interrupted me about how you boning my mom. It's not cool, man.
But you know what is cool? Nerds Talking the Podcast every Friday on all podcast outlets.
I mean, they are cool. Nerds Talking the Podcast, man. So there you go, Barry. Not bad.
Also, bang your mum.
Fuck you, Barry. Come on, man.
Now back to the show and his mum.
Welcome back to Nerds Talking the Podcast. It's me, Lafayette, and we're back here with Flex Macallion, the pro wrestler who is just pretty much done it all in wrestling and continuing to do it in wrestling. He's the journey never ends. He's good friends with probably the biggest name, or I would say top 5 biggest names in wrestling, LA Knight. If you guys don't know who that is, check out WWE. He's on SmackDown, if I'm not correct, or is he now on Raw?
He's on SmackDown, but they've been using him on both shows.
Jumping around.
He's electrifying.
Yeah, he's very popular. He'll remind you of the Attitude Era. He's really
a throwback. He's a throwback. And I've known Sean since 2010, and he rocked up to a training one time at Mach 1, and inside of Sean, a little bit of his life was he used to live with John Moxley, and at that time, I think they were living in, I want to say, Columbus, Ohio.
Huh.
And then Sean, I don't know what was his reason for moving out here, but he moved out to California. He moved out to Hollywood. And at that moment, he just needed a school to just be a part of and freshen up. He was he was already fully trained, and he was already having matches on the East Coast in Maryland, and maybe they were living in Maryland. Maybe it wasn't Columbus, Ohio. Maybe it was Maryland, or I think Sean's from Maryland. But anyway, so so he rocked up, and I looked at him, and I was like, "This dude, this is 2010." So roll the clock back, what is that, like
13 years
ago?
Yeah.
And he already looked like $1 million. He walks in there, and I'm like, and I was 21, 22 at the time, and I was the only guy with like abs out here, so I felt special, and I announced myself as being very special because I was a young cocky kid. But he came in, and instantly I was like, this guy's it. He's fantastic. And then we had Brian Cage came through, and right away Dave was like, we're putting these two together. And you know what's funny is throughout the years, there was a couple times where I was to be paired with them. I want to say 2 or 3 times. Different promoters and different people that would come into the business for a split second, they wanted to see the 3 of us paired up, because for a long period of time, before they amplified their looks, we all had similar bodies. I was always the shortest of the 3, but we had like a similar physique, and like we had this like clean cut white guy look, and they just felt like the 3 of us could be something together. But Dave went and put the 2 of them together, and they were called Natural Selection. If you look this up, I mean, this is Googleable, and they were a team. They were like the greatest team we had out here for a long time, just because they looked fantastic. They worked great. And I knew for certain, I was like, these guys will definitely go somewhere someday. So it's mind blowing to see where both of them are at now. Brian is doing fantastic in AEW, and he's with Prince Nana, which is another one of my close friends. He's a fantastic dude, just great human. And but Sean is literally, like you said, one of the top 5 biggest and most known names. The funny part with wrestling is, it's hard for people to distinguish who's a wrestler outside of Hulk Hogan, John Cena, The Rock.
True.
And that's usually as far as people get. If you start to say The Undertaker, maybe they heard that name, But it's funny because I bring up LA Knight to people, and they go, oh, yeah, dude, I seen him. Like, I seen his memes. I seen the TikToks, blah, blah, blah. He's that known that he's reaching the casual audience. And that's where it's fantastic, because he's just being himself.
Well, the greatest story of LA Knight, for people that aren't unaware, I mean, he's been in wrestling, like you said. He's been at WWE before. He was on Impact for a long time. Like, that was kind of his home base of where he honed his
Eli Drake.
Yeah, that's right. His skill. But he's 40 years old. He just 40. Blew up. I mean, the man literally is like top 5 of their company. Like, he is their star. Everyone loves him. And he played like significant little parts. He was, NXT. He was huge. Actually, he was pretty big in NXT.
He was the golden goose in NXT, and they threw the $1 million championship on him, which they brought that title back because I think they felt that it suited him and it suited the character, and it seemed like he was, that was the launching pad. And then different things happened with creative and management, and they went with a different direction. And
a ridiculous direction. Let's just
from
say it.
the stories out there, it was planned for another, wrestler. I won't name drop all that information, but it was planned for someone else that didn't want the position, and they turned it down and they walked away from the company. And then, from what I hear, Vince is very hell bent on making sure what his ideas have happen, so he just kind of changed the script and put another person into the role. And then you had LA Knight become Max Dupree. Yeah, and that
was horrible. Which is funny though, because when you watch it and you're like, wait, LA Knight was so cool. Why is he Max Dupree now? Like LA Knight and NXT
on their programming. That was the most confusing part.
Yeah.
It wasn't Eli Drake switching to LA Knight. Okay, that made sense. WWE owns him now, But when it was NXT, LA Knight to main roster, Max Dupree, it was like
yeah, because we're like, we know who you are. You were actually cool back in NXT. Why you suck now? And they reversed course, and it worked as it did in NXT. But the story really is 40 years old. He blows up. Kids don't give up, kids. All right. Even 2 Chainz, the rapper, didn't become a famous rapper until he was almost 45 years old. Like
you could have took the moment I saw Sean back in 2010, you could have took him on that day and molded him and given him time to mature as all of us need at a younger age. And you would have had so many more years.
Oh, he would have been
incredible superstar.
Yes, he would have been massive then.
But because people lay lines and they make sure that, people just kind of eat their words and make their actions felt. They went and, like you said, he was released, back in, I believe that was 2003. I think he was released.
Yeah, it was after he made the Triple H yoga video, whatever that was.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they let him go. And he was in that. Yeah. And they let him go. And, he did huge other things like TNA and NWA, and he was pretty much bouncing everywhere but there. And I would imagine he was probably offered a contract at that time through AEW. I don't know for certain, but I think his dream, Sean, is a real wrestling fan. He really cared about the product. He's not just a guy like myself. We're not just guys that have a built body and we're like, oh man, I just want to get famous for my body. Not at all. Cause I get that so often. Promoters often think that like, I just wanted to get known. And the way for me to do it was pro wrestling. And I said, dude, I am an almanac of knowledge of pro wrestling. I can tell you the amount of times that someone held the hardcore championship when it was on the 24/7 rule. I said, don't try to tell me that I'm doing this because I built this body to survive in this industry. And I feel like guys like Brian and Sean did exactly the same.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And like I said, he is massive. And it's crazy. I know you guys are close friends. And I'm pretty sure when you see him on TV, you're just like, man, look at this guy go. Because it's great.
Every time, man, like every time I see him, like it's just that the feels of the moments for him. Like when he just had that epic moment at the pay-per-view with John Cena. And I just said, man, you just think even 3-4 years ago, and we're all just hanging out and chilling with each other. And I every time I look at guys like him, and I've said this since the day that I met these guys, and I'm glad and I'm lucky to become close friends with them. But LA Knight and Scorpio Sky, right when I met them, I just knew I'm like, these guys, those two are what made me watch wrestling. And they just hadn't hit their peak yet. They just hadn't gotten signed and had the world see them for what they are. And during that time, sometimes you self-doubt yourself, because you're not earning money. You're not getting the respect. Okay, you have your close group of friends to put you over, but your friends should put you over, shouldn't they? So it's like it's deterring. But I knew for certain, I said, man, all these two dudes need is a company to back them. That's all they need. And with that, they will be the top stars wherever they go. And, both of them super successful now. LA Knight just getting to work with the biggest name, and Scorpio Sky got to work with Sting, Jericho. These are monumental. Once you get there, you have to see it. as you are a peer. You are equal to them in a sense. But there's still something that I know deep down inside of you where you're jittery, like your 12-year-old self, because you're getting to work with the guys you played with their action figures and you chose in the video games. And now you can select guys like Sky and LA Knight in the video games for these respective companies. So that's the coolest thing that, like, for me, being close friends with them and getting to see them live out their journeys and to work with these legends. Just, I know how much it matters to them and how, like, probably thrilled they are inside, but keeping it very composed for the level they are at right now.
I'm pretty sure you've created a wrestler in 2K24 and then just beat the shit out of them and then showed it to him. Like, I just beat you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Let me talk
fantasy,
to you.
some fantasy stuff. Well, I just haven't got my shot yet.
So we've been through your WWE where you which is, like I said, phenomenal.
I pretty much beat Brock Lesnar. Whatever.
Yeah, you beat Brock Lesnar. He's a bum. I'm surprised he's still around.
Okay. Let's not. Yeah, pretty much like that.
At AEW, like, when you got a call from them, how did that go about? Like, how did that come around?
So AEW was a tough spot because I want to say I know probably like 70% of the guys that work there, and I've worked with them. I'm not saying I'm great friends with all of them. I would say
but
I'm close friends.
They saw you, they know you. Hey, Dave,
they
what's
know
up?
who I am.
Yeah.
They would know the name. They would know to see me.
Yeah.
So it was a weird time when that promotion started up and COVID hit almost at the same time.
Uh-huh.
So it was a weird thing because a lot of my friends are transitioning to becoming, indie wrestlers to superstars. And I was sitting on a couch watching them. And that was a depressing time for me. It was really like a hang your head type moment. And I said, man, it's not to take a shot at anybody in the industry, but I'm like, there's no difference between me and them. Like, honestly, some of the guys that have been given opportunities or spots, they're horrible at what they do in terms of charisma. They have no character play. They don't know how to get into the role, but they have something about them that someone saw and said, hey, I feel safe with him. I feel comfortable with him. Let's employ him. Or he's a friend. That's
another thing. Do you feel, because I'm like you, where I watch some guys, especially in the AEW, where here's a mic and then they're just horrible. And you're like, wow, okay, why are they letting this guy talk right now? And then do you feel like, and I'm pretty sure this is in the business, goes in every business, even my business, who right? Who is going to help put you over. And then you're like, oh, that guy knows that guy who knows that guy. And you see it and you're like, oh my God, like, this is how, right?
I feel like you run into that, like you said, there's certain companies that you run into that more common than others. And it definitely is. And it's not just one company of the top companies out there, but there's definitely there's more room for friendship allowance than there is for taking a chance of someone who's not close compadre. And it's kind of, I mean, it's frustrating to watch certain things occur that you're like, what? Or roles happen that you're like, you just know that if given the opportunity, you could do it. There's nothing that says, hey, I can't do that. Or, why? For me, I will advocate. I've worked my ass off for all these years. Even when I came to California, like, I wasn't ready for that at 21. Like, I pretty much hopped on a bullet off the gun and just went. And now I've survived, 14 years of California. I'm just by myself out here. My family, if any family, it's all East Coast. So I've survived this lifestyle because I wanted to give this a full-on shot. And I built this name in this market out here. And until I feel like, I would get a larger chance of maybe getting a contract at one of the major companies, I stay loyal as I have I am one of the longest tenured guys at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And I stay loyal to the programming because they have used me, prominently throughout the years. Whenever I'm around, they've used me. And I feel like I've grown a lot with that time. And at this time, watching others that, worked with, won, lost, whatever. Like, it's just, I want that same shot. And so I reached out. We'll get back on track here. I reached out to AEW once they started using extras again. And I was lucky enough to reach out to the extras coordinator, which was Sean Dean, Captain Sean Dean. And I actually got to meet him at one of our shows, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. We did a couple shows where they flew him out. He came out here, and I got to meet him in person, and we just chatted like regular. There was nothing extra special of the connection, but he got to see me firsthand, and I got to talk to him. He could see that I feel like a civilized human, and therefore I think the email at least reached home better, and he gave myself and Richie the opportunity to come out when they first came out to California it was the beginning of this year in January. I think this was the first time that they came to California, and it was at the Kia Forum because a lot of their journey was through lockdown, or a very limited audience. So they stayed in Florida where they operate out of. So they came out to the Kia Forum, and I mean, I was super excited to be able to, be there and be amongst people I know that have now gotten famous. It was a really cool time. But once I arrived there, the hard part is California is a huge wrestling market, and if anyone knows, the Bucks and many other head stars in even Omega, they were major names in California for years. So they have so many friends here that aren't employed, that are still working the indie scene or semi-retired, but still ready to go when the call's made. And on that day, there was so many extras. There was like 24, 25 extras. And I said, oh man, like it's hard to get noticed when you have all this amazing talent. I never shortcut any other one else that deserves, that rub or that opportunity. So right away, I just felt kind of like, I don't know if this is going to be the moment. I don't know if we're going to get seen. And I said to Richie, like, I'm kind of, I'm nervous, and I'm getting to bump into people I know, like MJF and Max Caster and Peter Avalon, like friends I've made throughout the business. And like, they're seeing me for the first time, some of them in years. And they're like, whoa, dude, so cool you're here. And I'm like, I'm glad to be here. But it didn't seem like we were going to get used. They were very limited on who they could use on that programming. And that was the same night that Adam Cole was coming back from the injury he had. So there was a lot of timing going into the program already. And we were just kind of sitting on the sidelines. And Sean came over and said, hey, are you guys available next week? We're going to be up in Fresno. And right away, my mind's like, absolutely. And then Richie's like, I have to check my schedule. And I said, no, you won't. Like, yes, we are available. Yes. And, so we were like, I'll be there, we'll be there. So that's what we did. So the next week, they invited us back up to Fresno. And I thought to myself, like, I hope this is them looking at us in person and saying, maybe I want to see what they can do. There's a little bit of like, they have an interesting look. They're clean cut dudes. They got muscles, whatever, So, we made the drive up to Fresno, and we get there, nice and early, and we do the whole thing. And now it's coming to showtime, and there's nothing on the card. And like they film. This was when they were filming Dark and Dark Elevation before they went live with Dynamite. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing on the whiteboard. I'm standing there, and like I'm not standing by it because I don't know if I'm waiting for anything. But Hikaru Shida's standing there, and Jake Hager's standing there, and I said to them, is it always like this? Like that? And they said, no. Like, okay. And they were like, this is really late. So they start filling in. Finally, someone came up. I think it was Aubrey Edwards. She starts filling in matches, and they're doing Dark, and then they're doing Dark Elevation. She's writing things. And I'm looking, and I'm like, dude, I don't think we're getting a shot again. Like, it was, for me, I was like, yeah, this is pretty disheartening. Just because you just want to perform, you just want to get out there, you want to be seen. And Sean is over there by the curtain, and I feel someone looking at me, and I feel that presence. I look, Sean's looking at me, and he's just like this. Come here. So I just bump Richie, and I'm like, Richie, Sean wants us to come over, So we go over, and he goes, I want to use you guys in a tag match. You're going against the Butcher and the Blade. We're just going to showcase them, just follow their lead. And your agent is Luther. And that was that. And I was like, thank you. He's like, go get dressed. And I'm like looking at the time, and I'm like, oh man, like it starts in 30 minutes. And I think we're like match I don't know. Like, I'm looking at the card and I'm like, I don't even know what they're going to call us at this point, because, we sign for AEW, you sign this little thing that kind of gives commentary or the company some brief details of your bio. So that way it's not like, hey, I'm just random creator wrestler, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is my character. If you want to use me as it, whatever. So I turned that in before I, arrived on site. I don't know who handles that. So I'm looking at the board, and curiously, I hear Chris Jericho say, he's looking at the board and he goes, "What the hell's a beef candy?" And then he's standing next to Luther, and Luther just kind of taps him on the shoulder and points backwards like, "These guys." He turns around and he goes, "Huh." And he walks away. And then I was just like, "Oh man, that was cool." Just
he liked it. You know what I mean?
I think he didn't know. I think when he read that, that's something that he would have in a segment that he would probably say.
Exactly.
And then when he saw us, I think with most people, when they see the two of us, they understand what beef candy is, but the idea of reading that, oh man, that could go so many different ways. So we got with the Butcher and the Blade. Man, they're fantastic guys. We planned a match. We went out there. I still feel to this day, watching the match back, it came out as good as it could. Like, those two got to shine. For whatever reason, they started chanting beef during the match, even though I got zero offense. I threw a clothesline that Butcher no-sold. But as he was lifting me up, he says to me, "Man, you're over. You're getting over." And I'm like, "I ain't doing anything." I just on my butt.
You guys basically did a squash match.
The coolest thing was, so right before we go out there,
yeah.
Dasha, man, I can't think of her last name. The announcer. She says to me, "Hey, she goes, so we're not going to use the beef candy name." They said no. And then she goes, "And we're not going to call you Flex. We're going to call you David." And then I just was like, okay, what am I to say? I'm not their intellectual property. You know what I mean? Like, so I totally get it. You're going to go with what you feel is necessary. So we went out there, and then they got their grand entrance. We did a walk through the crowd, and we got put in the ring. And the coolest part was when we're walking through the crowd, the people in the crowd were like, "Oh, it's beef candy." And I'm like, like, we're known, and it's up in NorCal, like, cool. And so we get in the ring, and then, they did the whole, with Richie Slade and David Macallion, and we did our, regular shtick, beef candy. And then the crowd, I think we heard a couple of them, like, they were ready for it. So we did the match. And then when we get to the back, everyone was happy with it. It was cool. And let me see, where was I going with this? And then Butcher and Blade were like, the coolest dudes, and we had that moment where I got over, but they were like technically like the faces in there. They were just like, you look like strong faces, like you said. It was a squash match, so we were just out there to kind of. Richie sold like he does. Richie is a selling machine, so everything he took mostly from Blade was just like, it just looked brutal. And they wanted particularly to do the finish on me because I think it just looked like it was a stronger finish to finish off the buff dude, and it all came out good. And then that was just kind of how it rolled, and we got that opportunity to perform there. But it's so hit or miss to, come back or to get signed. You don't know what to do. You don't know who to ask for anything more. So all you can keep doing is reaching out, and I hope to work with them again, soon. And that's the same with WWE. Like, we are free agents, regardless of how you look at it. We're free agents. We're not contracted to any company. We have loyalties that we do for certain companies. Richie definitely works more companies than I do on the regular. But we stick to that company until someone locks us in to a deal that says, "Hey, I'm going to take care of you guys. I'm going to make sure that you can pay for your bills and do this for a living." And that's when you say, "Aye, aye, Captain." You know what I mean? That's it. You follow suit with that. So, I'm getting up there in age. Richie's getting up there in age. And every day I use Sean, LA Knight, as my hope and prayer that this can still happen even when you're tipping 40.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's people might not know. There's WWE, who's the big dog. There's AEW, they're right there behind them, owned by Tony Khan, who basically owns the Jacksonville Jaguars. And is it the Hotspurs? Tottenham Hotspurs? I forgot which, or is it Man City? They own one of the
talking out of my that's out of my.
But they own one of the Premier League soccer teams.
He owns Ring of Honor.
He owns Ring of Honor as well. They bought Ring of Honor, which is also a huge huge wrestling.
It was the third biggest. I would say Ring of
was.
Honor for a long time was the third biggest wrestling company, maybe
Yeah.
fourth, but like definitely, yeah, for one moment, definitely the third. And then they purchased them because they were claiming
Oh, they
bankruptcy.
basically folding. And then you got Impact Wrestling, that's been lingering and hanging on for years now. You got
Yeah.
NWA, which is a YouTube only product, really owned by, if you guys don't know, the lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins.
Smashing Pumpkins, Billy
Yeah.
Corgan, William Corgan.
Yep, Billy Corgan. Is it Corgan or Corbin?
Corgan.
Corgan, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And
You're
then
thinking
you,
Baron Corbin.
I know, yeah. And then you have OVW, what's still
OVW, yeah, and they just got a good spotlight. I'm also
on Netflix.
I know Jesse Goddard's Mr. Spectacular. I met him through Dylan Bostic, so we became friends through that. So I just watched that whole Netflix. And I don't think it was a documentary, but
No,
TV
it was a
show
docu series.
Yeah, docu-series. And it was done well. I liked the way that what I liked really was that I don't remember his name, but the OVW guy that's a money backer. Let me just say that for wrestling, every company needs somebody, whether they know wrestling or not. And I know that most bookers and producers will fight me on this. But you need somebody that is a heavy money bag that wants things done the way they see things to be done, regardless if it's wrestling or not, because wrestling needs money. And it's a stage performance. The ring is the stage. So without money, the wrestlers, they get peanuts, and then we don't survive, and the product doesn't survive. So you need someone who just wants to throw their money around and tell people what to do, and they want to see things happen like they like to. And I watched that with the OVW, and I was like, dude, that's perfect. Like perfect.
Yeah. And plus you got WoW or Glow. It's still going on. And if you've ever seen it, their production value.
I've gone to a couple. I'm friends with Ray Lynn, and I've gone to a couple of when they film it up in LA at the what is that?
They don't film in Long Beach anymore?
Nah, they've been filming it in LA.
Okay.
What is that? The old school arena. I can't think of what it is, but it's a nice feel to it. It's really
the
cool.
thing is, they put a lot of production value into that show. Like, it's very highly produced.
Sometimes more than necessary.
Yeah, way more than necessary.
Yeah.
It looks like made for TV. You know what I mean? Like,
it is. Yeah, it is. Definitely.
And when I see that, I think, if the smaller OVWs and NWAs had that feel, people would probably watch it more, because the production value is ridiculously good for Glow, considering it's all women's wrestling. It's ridiculous.
Let me say that my feel on wrestling, regardless of who takes it or not, but for me, the thing that sparked in wrestling for me always was running vignettes. And I know that a lot of bookers and promoters think like, well, who the F are you if you're coming into somewhere and you're brand new and you haven't done anything? Who cares who they are? Who cares if they have 6 months or 10 years to their name? You are the one that can make them a star. If that guy or girl is able to run with what you give them, then give them something that the people can bite into. Don't throw Jello at their face. Don't put every new guy in there as a green squash guy. Make him something. Protect him. Wrestling is all about protecting the image. If this guy can't throw punches, don't have him throw punches. Have him choke people. Wrestling, what you learn over time is it's so easy to produce something when someone is missing a piece. If someone sucks at talking, you just don't have them speak. You give them a manager. You don't give them a microphone. You're asking them to sink. You're putting holes in the boat when you're literally putting them in the spot of something they cannot do.
Yeah, no, it's true. But I think you're right. You have to give wrestlers a vignette. No, give them a spotlight for quick. It can be 2 minutes. Because as a consumer, because that's what we really are, we're consuming this product. That guy I might be like, man, that guy, I want to see more of that guy.
It's the marketing technique. It's the same with anywhere you ever go that's trying to sell a product. Like you said, you're going to go and put it on a billboard. You're going to get a 15-second ad, and that's your moment to sell what you got. No one cares that it's another one of many things that are out. Yeah, cool. It's another wrestler in a wrestling company. Sweet. Now, if you want to do the long story and build him up, like, man, he lost all his matches and now he's crying because he can't afford, food for his baby mama, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Or you do something like you did with Carlito, you did with Kofi Kingston, you did with Chris Masters, you did with Kevin Thorne, and you build them up through a video package for weeks, for months, and you make someone really question, who is this guy? I'm excited to see this guy. What has he done? Who cares if he's never wrestled a single match in front of a live crowd? You just made everybody believe that this guy is the new it factor.
Well, remember Sheamus, right? His first match, he won the championship.
He won the championship.
But they built him up beforehand. You're like, who's this guy? And when he came out, like, okay. And he won. But that's wrestling for you, right? So we'll run through some quick hitters here. Give me a moment when, like I said, a promoter, you went out of your way for a show and a promoter stiffed you or didn't even use you or literally didn't even pay you what you were promised to be paid. And you're like, come on, man, what's up with this?
So there's one. It's funny because it all lines up now. But this was back in like 2010, 2011. I was a squash guy for like 2-3 years, and I made it be known I was tired of just going out there and jobbing. And like this was driving to Glendale every week, and I lived in Orange County. And I told Dave Marquez, like, man, I need something. I need you to give me something. Like I just need like a match, not just squash. And there was this particular taping, and this occurred to my exit from wrestling for a few years. And I get there, and the sheet's on the wall, and it's me and LA Knight, and it's 15 seconds long. And I pulled Sean off to the side, and I said, hey, dude, like, I said, I don't want to do this match because I said, I'm tired of just being a squash guy. And he was just like, handle it, whatever. And I went to Dave and said, hey, man, I'm not doing this. And he goes, what? And I said, not doing it. Like, not losing again, bro. I've lost to the Plague. I've lost to Brian Cage. I've lost to so many the Terex. I lost to Biggie Biggs. And I said, there's so many guys I just squash job to, bro, under 30 seconds. And like, I don't get an entrance. I don't get nothing. And I knew I was new. And I know that, I was talking out of line. I didn't know enough, but I just was like, not doing it. I take off of work to come here. It's a very different pay scale of what I was getting paid. Which was virtually nothing. And then to taking off from my real job. And I said, no. And then they said, okay, I can fill your spot with anybody. And I said, go ahead. And then we got into a big old argument and a big fight. And Adam Pearce was there. Colt Cabana was there. It was quite the thing. And I challenged the entire locker room to fight
there
me.
You go.
And then they all just stared at me like, oh, this guy just did career suicide. And then I went downstairs, and I'm friends with Eric Watts from the Tough Enough fame. And they said to Watts, hey, go handle your boy. He's out of control. So he was all like, hey, dude, like, what is up? And I said, dude, I can't take this. I need something, bro. I need a microphone. I need something. I know I can do more than just be a loser. And it was just the fact that, like, the fans can't I heard fans whisper, oh, we know who's losing this match when I came out. And I was like, I can't do it anymore. Like, not what it was. It was, so that was that moment. And that went to my exit from wrestling for about 2-3 years until I was reincorporated as Coach Flex.
And then Mexico. I know you wrestled in Mexico numerous times. Real quick, what's the big difference? And what's it like just even wrestling for that crowd?
Just to sum it up, you could be the worst wrestler of all time ever, and they will love you because the spotlight is on you. And more particularly for me and Richie is we have fantastic bodies and physiques. So we felt like superheroes being there. A lovely crowd, fantastic people. They believe in the sport. They don't look at it as fake at all. So it's as real as it gets there. It's a great place to work.
No, that's great. Yeah, I see it all the time. You always post pictures in Mexico. You guys look like you're having a blast.
Yeah, it was
in
fun.
Mexico. Yeah, and then let's run down our top 5 lists. Top five. Okay, this is the best wrestler, not the best like overall personality wise, just wrestling. Give me your top 5 best wrestlers ever that you've seen in the ring that you're like, man, that guy's amazing.
Kurt Angle.
Oh, yep.
Definitively Kurt Angle. I want to say currently right now, Gunther. Absolutely. Gunther's fantastic. Just amazing. I mean, because he's in my head and he's current as hell, Chad Gable. I've thought for years now, God, I hated to watch Chad get what he got, and now what he's getting, he's pulled it out, and he deserves every second of it. Another great wrestler, different kind of style, Steve Blackman. Man, Steve Blackman was like, dude, he was, martial artist, but what a cool style for wrestling. I just loved Steve Blackman. And I would say my 5th Um, man.
What do you got? I mean, Shawn Michaels. You got
See, I'm not that kind of guy that goes with the regular,
okay.
but I mean, I think I will fill it. I think I will fill it with someone that most people would agree on. And I would say Eddie Guerrero.
Oh,
Eddie
Eddie was
Eddie
great.
just possessed every single style. He was literally like just as neutral as it gets in the middle. If you had a scaling system, he was just a full circle in the middle.
Yeah, because
That's
he could do power wrestling. He could do high flying wrestling, like
high
anything.
flying. He was technical. He did it
Yes.
all.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The worst wrestlers in the sense of like you just watch him and you're like, how did you get so big? You are
Okay.
just absolutely like I mean, a good example is Goldberg, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah.
He can't wrestle to save his life.
Uh,
But give me your top five.
I gotta think of people that I won't encounter in the locker room. Let's say, I mean, Sid
Just
Vicious.
pick the guys that are pick the guys that are
You know what I
already
mean?
out.
Sid Vicious. That was
He was
Psycho
horrible.
Sid. I love his everything about
Yeah,
him, but
yeah,
his
yeah.
wrestling was terrible. You know, I'm trying to think of current day wise.
I mean, it's current day. I mean, there's guys that stand out, but they're not big. You know what I mean? They're not like,
Yeah,
oh, he's just kind of like whatever.
Who
you know.
was really bad? I'm trying to think who was really bad that made it. You know, I'm gonna say this isn't a wrestler, but commentator Mike Adamle was the worst of all time. And I don't if I ever encounter Mike, sorry, Mike, but Mike Adamle, he botched every single thing he ever was getting at. That just stood out to me for the test of time.
I mean, you got old school wrestlers like Ultimate Warrior was horrible, right?
Ultimate Warrior was really bad. I'll say
really
that's
bad.
that's let's say number 3, and then man, who else was really bad?
I mean, like it's
Hulk Hogan's chair shots. They were really bad. And
just his chair shots.
He just liked to bunk people on the head
Yeah,
really like he
yeah,
was very
yeah.
careful, but
Yeah.
and then I'm trying to think of someone from ECW that was horrible.
I mean, Raven wasn't the best. Let's
No,
be
Raven,
honest.
you know, he was a I loved him. I
Yeah.
loved him until I met him.
But his character sold him.
Yeah.
But he wasn't. He was so overhyped. Especially
Yeah.
remember when he went to WCW and they overhyped the shit out of him.
The flock. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the next
He
great
didn't do
thing, and he
anything.
was
Yeah.
the worst thing. Yeah, no, I'm surprised you didn't throw Chris Jericho in your best wrestlers because that guy kind of does a little bit of everything too. You know?
Yeah, you know, Jericho is another one that I think I just kind of skimmed through.
Yeah.
It was more of like I was touching on modern guys too,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
all time.
How about best personalities? Your top 5. I mean, this must be an easy list for you.
You know, once again, I'm going to say Kurt Angle, man.
He was great.
He was able to just do it all. I'm going to say Christian is my all-time favorite of all time. Christian's number 1. I think I will say Jericho in this for sure because he's the most evolutionary.
He's the mouthpiece for sure. Yeah,
ever been.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then I want to say Randy Orton too, man. Randy Orton is another one that does. He can get into all columns of best of all time.
Yep.
And then 5th of personalities. I'm gonna throw a curveball. I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Mordecai.
What?
You might not even remember.
Mordecai.
I was so hyped on Mordecai, man. I was so sad that died. Kevin Furtick's still alive, but Kevin Thorne, he became Kevin Thorne later on. But man, I had such hope for Mordecai, bro. And then
wow, you picked Mordecai.
So I'm just saying it.
I mean, how do you not pick The Rock?
Him.
I mean, oh wow. But the Rock's too easy, right? It's an easy choice.
I can't, like I said, mainstream. Usually, I don't. I mean, I love them. I fully apply them, but they're not my guys.
Your opinion, your top 3 overall greatest wrestlers. They could be the most influential, the biggest impact. Who are your top 3 of all time?
Christian number 1. Christian for me number 1. Okay. I still think right now he's the best one of, if not the best promo in the business.
I mean, he steals championships, but that's okay. It's not his.
But he's officially champion now. And then Chris Jericho number 2.
Yep.
And I almost want to say, even though it's putting all the Canadians in the list, but Edge number 3, man. Edge. He did it all too, bro. Shoot, like Edge, because just his promos when he hits that, like it's as real as it gets, man.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's Flex Macallion. Check him out. Again, he will give your Instagram real quick for the folks.
At Flex Macallion. At Flex Macallion.
There you go.
I keep it kind of updated. Sometimes my story strays away from wrestling, but whenever I'm doing shows, you can definitely find me where I'm going to be at. And I have all of my promos, everything that airs on TV. You can find it on there. And my YouTube, search Flex Macallion, and you'll find it on there as well.
There you go. Thanks for joining us here on Nerds Talking the Podcast. Flex, anytime you want to jump on. And there you go, people. Thanks for joining us here on Nerds Talking the Podcast. We'll catch you next time. Later.
Boo Candy.